It's really hard to meet great people, great companies, clients, manufacturers, whatever, to meet them in one of the worst moments of their lives, where they've gotten a call from a regulator and people are ill or dead. That's a call nobody wants to get. Meeting people and helping them navigate through that kind of challenge where they have whole host of emotions, being able to connect dots, integrate, and apply my background expertise so I can help people. That's why I do what I do.
I'm going to pull on that just a little bit. You had said, I didn't build this to sell it. I want to change the world. You're building an ecosystem and series of companies almost to outlast or outlive you.
I'm not a coder. I'm a microbiologist. Digitizing it so everybody could see what was in my head was what I have come to learn now is probably going to be my biggest changing the world opportunity. And I didn't expect that.
I am joined today with Melissa Calicchia, owner of Food Microbiological Laboratories, Food Safety Solutions, and eBacMap. Melissa, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. I'm delighted to be here.
It's been a long time coming. We've been talking about this for a while. I want to start off with how I opened it. I just listed 3 separate and different companies that you have started and built. One's a service company, one's a consulting company, and one's a technology company. And what fascinates me is that they all serve the same industry and client challenges just in different ways. That really tells me it was never about owning the business. It was about building an ecosystem around this vision that you had. I'm wondering, did you always know you were building something bigger than just one company?
No, I didn't always know that. I learned that as I iterated along the way when I saw the need in the market for those services or for that software. And so I iterated.
Let's go back to when you started the first company. What was the need in the market, or what did you see out there to go, I'm going to go out on my own and just start this thing?
Well, the consult firm was the first one. And I started that firm because I was working for a very, very large laboratory company, and they had sold, and they had new owners, and their direction was different than the way I saw it. And in particular, I saw the need to help people make their testing and information more meaningful. I always worked on the analytical side to make sure that test results were good and were appropriate and correct. But helping people understand what the results mean is what I saw really the need for. And that's why I started the consult company.
When you're going in and consulting, microbiological, this is food safety. This is every single thing that is going inside our bodies on a daily basis. And so what I'm hearing is it just wasn't a test saying this is edible or not, this is safe or not, that there was so much more beyond that.
Yes, I'm a firm believer all this time that if the results don't mean anything, that those resources might not be being used as wisely as they could for any business owner with all the food businesses that we work with and related businesses. I personally don't find that very meaningful when you do things that you didn't really need to do, that didn't really make technical sense. And if people don't understand that, they can use up all their resources on what may not be meaningful, and then they've lost their resources or used up their budgets or whatever, and they can't do what's meaningful.
What's been most meaningful to you as you've been building these businesses?
The most meaningful to me, what drives me, even when I worked for the company that I worked for before I founded our first company, was working with the level of care and the relationships with our clients to plug in with them and help them where my expertise could help them. They certainly have expertise in their arenas, whether it's restaurant chains, whether it's food manufacturing, beverage, all kinds of things, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals. It they all have needs, and I really wanted to help them with that and plug in. And my arena, as far as my technical scope, is pretty tight, and it often is, again, not in the technical scope of who it is I'm working with. And so that's how and why I want to help. And I always treated, even when I worked for the other company, I respected them a lot, and they were a great company. And I always from the get-go worked as if I owned that company and with that level of care from the get-go. From my first 10 minutes as a bench level, advanced standing undergraduate, part-time employee. That's how I always treated it, thought of it.
You have such deep technical expertise. I've always introduced you as probably one of the top microbiologists in the country. When I see something on the news regarding food safety, I think, Melissa's on a plane. She's flying in to save someone. So many businesses, including your clients, are built on a technical expertise, not necessarily a business expertise. You've founded and built 3 businesses. Where did you learn that along the way?
Well, I learned it along the way from experience working for the company that I worked for prior, before I founded our businesses. But then I literally learned it on the fly with experience with how we were doing it, what we were doing. Certainly, certainly in my application and my end of the business and what we do, like you said, everything's different every day.
Mhm.
Every situation is totally different, and iterating what I think I if I think back about it now, I think what I really tried to do was really iterate and make it meaningful at the same time. So I try to always focus on iterating.
I I never really thought of it that way, but knowing you, it's always, how can this be done better?
Yes. Yes.
There's always a better way for the company, for the employees in it, for your clients, for the vendors. How can we make this better?
Yeah. That's certainly true.
When you first started all of it, was there an end goal, end game, or a purpose for, I'm going to build this to X and sell it? I'm going to build a lifestyle for myself and this family we want to build?
Well, my my goal has not ever been to build it to sell it. My goal really, as I learned with our newest company, which is the software pathogen mapping, tracking, and trending in the process environment, that software, it was clear to me that was I want to change the world. I work with the greatest people, I think, on the planet, with our clients and our teams, our internal teams. I feel so lucky every day. I will say that it's really hard to meet great people, great companies, clients, manufacturers, whatever, to meet them in one of the worst moments of their lives, where they've gotten a call from a regulator and people are ill or dead. And that's a call nobody wants to get. And that's the one thing I respect so much about everybody in the food industry is they do everything they can every day, everything they can think of every day to not get that call. And sometimes when that call comes, it can be for a lot of reasons. It could be because it's an emerging pathogen and it has not ever caused outbreak. It wasn't considered a foodborne illness agent prior, and it emerged and caused deaths or illness. And so meeting people and helping them navigate through that kind of challenge where they have a whole host of emotions, range of emotions, um, even if they didn't know, and even if that hazard wasn't yet ever identified, everybody feels bad. Nobody feels good about that. And so being able to connect the dots, integrate, and apply my background expertise so I can help people. That's why I do what I do. That's the thing that drives me, helping them.
And you have so much drive and passion for that. Along the way, was there a moment where you thought, I, I can't imagine doing anything else? I am in the right place at the right time, doing the right things. I am serving my higher purpose.
Oh, there definitely was a moment. It was that 10 minutes into my first job working in the industry as a part-time level, low-level bench tech. In 10 minutes, I said to myself, I'm doing this. I'm going to do this my whole life. I love this. And it was the most, when you talk to laboratory scientists, so these were tasks that sometimes they detest, or they say, I won't do this. I don't do this. Like, that's not in my realm. That's not what I want to do. And certainly that's everybody's right to do, to understand the passion that drives them. But for me, at that moment, I said, I'm working on products that are in people's homes, on supermarket shelves, and this and the application, what I'm doing helps everybody. And I knew early on. I didn't necessarily know that I was going to found my own companies, that I was going to invent and patent software. I didn't have any idea of that. All I knew was I was going to do this my whole life.
And if you were able to go back and give yourself one piece of advice, either as you had that aha moment or as you were starting the businesses and going out independently, what would that be?
Myself, the advice. Um, I would, uh, I would have, looking back on it now, I would have really tried to focus delegation, on delegation skills. Um, and that to me, I tend to, especially when things are new, they're literally unique situations. I tend to follow what I'm doing, and sometimes I fail um, to delegate pieces of it. Sometimes because I don't have time to even delegate to them, because things are very hot and heavy and critical. And so I would, knowing what I know now, that's the advice I would give myself. Work on that. It's a lot easier. It's hard work anyway, right? Being an entrepreneur, you know that. It's hard work, but it's satisfying. It doesn't have to be as hard as I made it, I think. There are certainly benefits in me doing what I did, ground up on everything, but it might have been a little easier along the way, too.
I'm going to pull on that just a little bit and what you had said of I didn't build this to sell it. I want to change the world and I wish I would have delegated a bit more. You're building an ecosystem and series of companies almost to outlast or outlive you.
Mhm, mhm. Well,
What do you see as the future of it?
I see the future of, I see the future of all of our businesses um, growing. There's so much need for the application of having proper testing done and having results you can rely on. the consultation and explaining what it means. The software is the thing that I actually didn't count on. I'm not a coder. I'm a microbiologist, right? And I'm not a coder. And so what I had to do was hire coders to digitize what it was that I was maps and trends and significant amounts of data that I was taking in to help with a problem, and building maps in my head effectively, and later on spreadsheets or on maps with colored pens. But you can't, and the power in what we're doing as far as changing the world really is being able to aggregate that data programmatically so that it's even more powerful than, it's not limited by even me, that I had so much experience, decades of experience doing that and creating maps and investigating contamination and correcting it and all that kind of stuff. Digitizing it so everybody could see what was in my head was what I have come to learn now is probably going to be my biggest um, changing the world opportunity. And I didn't expect that. That's utterly unexpected for me, again, because I'm not a coder. But we decided that's what I decided that based on a lecture that I did for a client, a great client of ours who's a retailer, and they asked me to speak on pathogen, food manufacturing plant pathogen contamination and monitoring of it and making use of the data. And I'll talk about that all day long. That's my passion,
Yeah.
right? And I spoke at this conference, and there were people at the conference from all over the world that were suppliers to this retailer. And after I gave the what I did was create and this was about 10 years ago. And what I did was create sort of time-lapse um, uh, snapshots of what the environment looks like and changes over time. And I showed it in a PowerPoint, a progressive PowerPoint. And after I got back from the meeting, I had people contacting me from all over the world saying, "Hey, I need that program. I need that program. How do I get that program?" And I said, "Well, it it actually doesn't exist."
I love it when we
You.
sell something that we have before we've built it. It's like
Yes.
pre-sales. I'll just start taking it now.
So flying the plane while you build it, it was an interesting experience. But anyway, that's I think handily the probably the number one future impact worldwide. We already have a lot of people all over heavily all over the U.S. and then elsewhere in the world who use our software, who subscribe to our software. So
In flying the plane while you build it, meaning you created a future state and it was that I want that, and you now needed to build something. What was the biggest lesson learned through that?
the biggest lesson I learned flying the plane while I build it. Don't waste, my biggest lesson, Melissa, don't waste time. And I found, even how busy I've been over my last 40 years, I became a new kind of busy. And it was very challenging, and I was a little surprised by it. And this was in a circumstance where somebody like myself, who hadn't really developed my muscle relative to delegation very well, became completely reliant on coders to delegate to them, because I don't have the capability to sit down and code at this time. So it was a very interesting challenge. I would never have dreamt that I would have done something like this and created something like this. From a technical standpoint, as far as IT technical, I never would have expected that, but that's been amazing.
You mentioned you found a new kind of busy, which a new kind of busy for Melissa is one that most of us cannot even begin to imagine. Can you envision a version of your life where you're not operating in the business every single day and you are a very slower version of Melissa Busy?
I can envision that day. And people ask me now, hey, well, when are you going to retire? I'm retiring, whatever. And they say, when are you going to retire? Because I came up with them. And I I can't I can't honestly imagine myself retiring. However, I could imagine myself doing a little less of what I love instead of full blown, 20 hours a day. I could do it 6 hours a day and be totally happy. So that's what I'll say. I can't imagine full stop retirement. But I've done a lot of things have happened, and a lot of things have happened that I could not ever have foresaw or imagined, and so life is a great journey.
What are you doing now to prepare? 'Cause sometimes that's a 3, 5, 8, 10-year plan
Oh, yeah.
to
Yeah.
go from how integrated and entwined you are both on the day-to-day operations, but also the mentally and the emotionally. It becomes part of our identity. What do you see as some of those steps, or what are you doing now to start that planning process?
Well, I'm really trying to focus on delegation, on succession. That's what I'm gonna start to turn my head towards, um, for 2 reasons. One is I'm not gonna live forever, but the other reason is that, yeah, obviously, with that kind of preparation, we're so much more, poised for growth,
Yeah,
changing the world.
I love it. In your mind, what does kind of the next generation of leadership in your business look like?
That's a good question, Kristen.
That's what you get for knowing me for so long.
Well, it's gonna be interesting. I honestly, I don't know how it's gonna end up, but what I see is that, like in many other, disciplines and fields, that AI is gonna be huge. For the folks, coming out of college now, microbiologists, food scientists, chemists, and those types of scientists coming out of school, I would say that it's 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 a challenge. You hear people say, make sure your critical thinking skills
Mhm.
are there, because if they're not, you're going to be a little cooked, even if you even if you are utilizing AI to its best advantage. And I use AI for research. I use that for a lot of things, but I find myself um, uh, identifying a lot, sometimes quite a number of things in AI that aren't exactly correct. That was an AI answer. Even even including references, when you need reference citations to support certain arguments or um, certain pathways that you're investigating. And sometimes I spend about half my time working with AI, going in and finding all of what's incorrect about about the AI output that I'm looking at. And without the critical thinking piece of it,
Mhm.
that's really, I think that is so necessary, because otherwise you can be utterly misled. And I'm sure that you have had that experience before, where something to be n- uh, not exactly correct on one of your outputs from an AI prompt, and but if you don't know that that's not right, you can be off on a very incorrect pathway. And so I feel like our up and coming scientists and business leaders and things, that'll be one of the challenges, will be to be able to cross-check to make sure that the information that they have is actually, correct, and they can rely on it appropriately. I see that that's might be a bigger challenge than I would have ever imagined, but I also see that there's quite a lot of iteration happening in the AI world, and a lot of the things, when I go in and query things, sometimes what it comes back with is I can recognize stuff that I wrote, that and published or whatever. I think that's going to be a bit of a challenge, and that's why I like it. I'm happy that all of our university professors and business leaders are focusing on that message to make sure make sure what you're getting is correct. Uh,
With those leaders coming out of college, they're getting, they're part-time on the bench doing the lab work. They're our future chemists. As they start to think towards, they may have that entrepreneurial spirit, and they're thinking towards potential ownership. What piece of advice would you give them at this point?
I I I specifically tell uh, advanced standing students in college, nearing graduation, a lot of times earlier than that. I really encourage them to get a job, get a job in the field. I feel like if there are bench people, there are researchers, there are all kinds of obviously avenues in the business, just like any other, discipline, any other business. And I think that if you haven't worked in the industry in some capacity, a lot of people don't know that they don't like it. Oh, I don't like this part of it. I got my Juris Doctorate, but I don't like being a lawyer. Oh, well, that might have been a cool thing to plug in during your education at some point, so you would know that what you were going to spend your time on would be something that would inspire you and that you would be so happy with. And so I tell them that. I also recommend them working, if they can, for a temporary service. So professional temporary service, so they can work inside companies and learn, how companies operate and what types of roles are out there. And are they the type of person who sees themselves in an office in a desk, or are they the type of person that sees them hanging off of the wire? What is it that they see, and what what is it they want to avoid, and what do they really want to seek? I always tell people that, and sometimes they get very surprised. But I really feel like that gives people a lot of experience that as far as their application and how they're going to change the world, and how they're going to be happy, you know.
I love that experiencing different things isn't always about finding out what you want. It's sometimes finding out what you don't want. Because it is far worse to end up in a career situation or set of circumstances that you are miserable in than just having not found your thing yet that you're passionate about. Being on
Yeah.
that journey is amazing. And from your perspective at this point in your life, what does freedom mean to you, Melissa?
What does freedom mean? Freedom really at this point is, uh, it feels like the ability to make what we've built, freedom to be able to the privilege to be able to keep working on it and improving it and growing it. That to me feels like freedom. And I know that's probably the opposite direction a lot of people feel, right? Like, oh, I do wish I could ski more. But beyond that, I feel like the freedom to make the impact that I want to make. I feel so blessed to know the people that I know and have worked with the companies and people that I have. I just feel like I'm in a spot where I, it's almost um, it's just a feeling of freedom that I can do, and feel like I could accomplish anything with proper delegation. I could do that, but I don't know. Did I answer your question?
And we're all a work in progress. Absolutely. And you're living that out as you continue to exercise that freedom and all that you're building right now. What's the one thing you wish more owners knew?
More owners knew. Well, I've worked with so many over the years. The for the owners that are young, right? Entrepreneurs that are just budding and they may be even in high school, they may be starting college or whatever. It the old saying, I always harken back to is, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. If you if everybody understands that it is a lot of hard work, but there's so much reward in it. If you've really picked what your passion is, um, I feel like that's the secret to it. So don't be afraid of hard work. If you're doing something and being successful at it, and you don't, and you've grown, you're probably doing things right, and you're probably working hard and working to build. And I feel like there's no easy, or there's little that's easy. All the people that I've known who have built, yeah, some of them hundreds of millions of dollars, billion-dollar corporations, they they were never working. If you talk to them, they were never working. They were accomplishing, they were achieving something, they were creating something. And all the hard work that they did, which what I modeled all the time, like I said, I had the pleasure of being able to work shoulder to shoulder with people who were building incredible organizations, and building their dreams. But none of them ever. It seemed like the ones who have built meaningful businesses, they never complain about how hard the work was. But I feel like the new entrepreneurs, younger people, sometimes it's a very hard leap to to imagine yourself at after you've accomplished and achieved something that sometimes just takes literally years and years, but it does happen. Sometimes it happens overnight, and that's awesome too, but be patient. I would tell people to be patient and expect hard work, but make sure you're doing what you love, or it's not good.
I love that. Don't build a business, build your dreams.
Yeah.
Right now, what are you owning? Either business, personally, professionally. What are you owning right now?
What am I owning, you said?
What are you owning right now?
What am I owning?
What
Okay,
are you
okay.
owning in your life?
Sorry, the air conditioner is
Yeah.
going off here, and so it's drowning out. What am I owning? I'm owning. I own the great things that we've accomplished, the novel things, the things nobody else ever did. I'm owning those, but every day I also own the things that I need to work on. I don't ever stop trying to figure out how it is I could do it better. What am I I'm always thinking about that, because everything's about processes, as you know.
Yeah.
It's all about processes. And if something's going wrong, a lot of times your process needs some tweaking. And I'm forever building my plane while I'm flying it. And if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Melissa, thank you for joining me today on She Owns It. And for everyone else, if today sparked a new idea, gave you something to take action on, don't let it sit. Share it, use it, and keep growing. And until next time, keep leading with clarity and confidence.
Thank you ever so much, Kristen. That's very meaningful coming from you. You've given me a lot of coaching, counsel, advice, support in my businesses and in what we do, and I'm very appreciative for it always.
We're in each other's communities, our villages, our tribes, and our wolf packs. Melissa, you're stuck with me. This is it.
Happily stuck with you if you could. If that's, I'll say that happily.